Hi, I'm Peter Birch and welcome to my channel. If you're new to my channel, make sure you hit that like button and the subscribe button. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about one of the most amazing lizards, I think, in the absolute universe. We're going to talk about the shingleback lizards. Let's check out their cage right now and go through some cool stuff. I mean, how could you not fall in love with these beautiful little critters? I mean, look at that face. It's a face of like a little teddy bear. It's absolutely gorgeous. These beautiful lizards, I tell you what, have really won me over. You might think that these are a new sort of species for us, but we've been keeping shinglebacks for many, many years. And in fact, I don't want to say how many years because it might make me look old. Now, these guys are absolutely drop dead gorgeous for so many different reasons. I mean, they're short, stumpy little legs, stumpy little tail, they're funny shaped heads. I mean, there's so many cool things about these beautiful little things that you can't help but fall in love with. They're big giant scales, they look so prehistoric. It's hard to believe that these guys are related to blue-tongued lizards. That's right, similarities in their body shapes, but very different at the same time. They've got this weird sort of looking tail, which almost mimics the shape of their head. Now that's actually part of their defense. So how do they defend themselves? Well, they'll actually turn themselves into like a horseshoe sort of section like this, bringing the tail around. They usually flare their mouth open and hiss and puff just like a blue tongue, and the hope is that the predator is going to try and attack the tail, not the head, because you know the tails can be lost and regenerated, but the heads, unfortunately, once the head is lost, it's gone forever. Now, absolutely gorgeous little creatures for so many different reasons. I mean, it's hard to believe that in nature these guys form a bond. That's right, mum and dad will form a bond for life. Now, in captivity things are a little bit different obviously, but out in the bush mum and dad will form a bond for life. Now, dad will seek out mum during the special times of the year to be able to mate and create new babies. Now, the pair will actually cruise around with the babies and show them how to eat and what types of plants they should be eating in their natural environments. They actually educate their babies, so it's very different to most other lizards or other reptiles. Now, I think these guys are absolutely gorgeous. Let's let it have a bit of a run. This cage is quite substantial, right? It's got to be at least 1.8 meters by at least 1200 or 1.2 meters, so 6 foot by about 4.5 feet. Nice high sides. Like I say, these guys don't typically climb, so they're not going to try and climb their way out. They might get in the corner and scramble a little bit. The reality is these shinglebacks have been known to walk over 500 meters a day, so they're quite substantial area that they like to gain. The coolest thing, guys, is that we originally got 3 babies a few years ago back from a friend who I gave adults to quite a few years ago when we actually had a lot of them and decided to get out of keeping shinglebacks for a little while. And we got those in, and then we actually found out we had some babies. Now, we've been very successful for the last couple of years. And how successful, you might want to say? Well, I'm going to say pretty successful, because I think we've got a bit of a population explosion right now. Look at this. Now, obviously, they prefer this nice little spot here under the heat light. Now, the heat light we just use to substitute heat sort of at the cooler ends of the afternoon, just when the sun has gone. Now, we've actually placed this big enclosure right next to a big glass window. I know what you're going to say. You're going to go all crazy with me, but let me just hear me out, guys, right? Now, the reality is, I know that UV light is filtered by glass. So the UV light that's very beneficial for reptiles, especially lizards, can't get through the glass. But what I do is I actually open the window, which allows these animals to have multiple opportunities for UV light. Just like reptiles and lizards like to thermoregulate with temperatures. In other words, they like to get hot and they like to get cold. They can move in and out of those zones. Lizards also prefer the same things when it comes to UV lighting. They like to be able to move in and out of those high impact areas with the UV lighting. Now, this glass actually helps. When the sun is coming through here first thing in the morning, it comes directly through one of the areas here where there is no UV or no glass, which gives you maximum UV impact. Then where the window is open, we can have maximum impact, we can have single glass, and we can have double glass. So the animal can now move in between these 3 areas and thermoregulate its UV requirements. I might sound like I'm an intelligent guy, but I'm not. I'm just very basic. I like to think what the animals like to think. So that probably makes me even a bit more weird. So during the really super cold months here on the Central Coast, where it gets down into the sort of 3 or 4 degrees at night, in the middle of the night, I get a little bit paranoid because these guys can't go to ground, which is what they normally do in the bush. So what I use is this bad boy here from Zoomed. It's the old habitat heater. I mean, a lot of the guys in the US use these for tortoises. They also use them for monitors. They're a thick, heavy duty plastic, which is pretty cool. Now, I can just put this bad boy in there. These guys will actually climb up, sit on top here, and pretend that they're basking, getting nice and warm. It only goes on for a couple of hours during the cooler months, which just helps supplement and make sure that we don't have any health issues. So if you are thinking of using one, I highly recommend these bad boys right here. But like I said before, look at the population explosion we've got here. It's hard to believe, but this is an adult female right here. This is Ruby. Ruby here is absolutely drop dead gorgeous, beautiful lizard. Look at her. Hey, look at her. She's Beautiful. Now, she's the mama of one of these babies. Now, one of these babies here, believe it or not, that thing there is now 6 to 7 months old. Look at the size of it compared to mum. They're actually very fast growing individuals. Here's another baby of Ruby's. That's 2 years old. That's as big as Ruby now. Now, look at that, guys. So it's one big happy family in here. Now, there's obviously a male and there's a couple of females because we've had a few babies from different females now, which makes it a very happy family, a very cohesive family. Now, this guy here looks a bit odd out, right? Well, he was born with a bit of a hump on his back. Most of his friends didn't really like him. So he's able to live in with the shinglebacks because the shinglebacks are very calm, cool, and collected animals. They're very cool to work with. What really makes these guys absolutely amazing to work with is their really cool demeanor. You know, they're really relaxed, really placid. I mean, sometimes they huff and puff and they'll open their mouth and try and give you a bit of a fright. That's because I've approached them a little bit scaringly. The cool things about these guys, they can live in large colonies kind of easy. They're not going to really fight. They're not going to do anything horrible to each other. They're just going to put up with each other. These guys like a lot of vegetable matter. So we've got to make sure we give them lots of nutritious salads. Now, we can give them some of the high protein stuff, but we've got to give it to them very sparingly. So when we look at things like dog or cat foods that people usually use for these animals, we give them very low amounts, but more and more vegetable matter. Because in nature, when you find these guys and follow them, they're feeding on a large amount of vegetable matter. They're almost like little cows. They're out there grazing through the bush there, right? Absolutely gorgeous things. So we do give them food. Always make sure that they've got nice water. Now, the reason why these guys are here inside is because the humidity that we get here in summer actually gets pretty high. Now, you don't find shinglebacks anywhere on the east coast. In fact, they're on the opposite side of the Great Dividing Range, which is a big mountain range. It runs up the east coast. It divides Central Australia from eastern coastal lands. Now, these guys do exist obviously on the other side where it's a lot drier. It does get cold. Does get super hot, same as here, but it's the humidity that's the problem. The humidity will cause really horrendous issues with their scales. Like, their scales are absolutely amazing. Big, gigantic scales on them. You know, for a blue tongue, they would have thousands of little scales, but shinglebacks just have few big, gigantic scales. When we go into scales, you know, we're talking about animals absorbing heat quickly. Well, smaller the scales, the faster they can heat up. So these guys got large scales, so it's going to take them a little bit longer to heat up, but they will maintain that body temperature a lot longer too, because it's a lot easier for them to maintain the temperature because they're not going to lose heat as quick as they would if they had smaller scales. These guys are absolutely amazing animals. You know, there's so many cool things about them. Like I said, they pair bond for life. These typically, so we're talking about the eastern variety here, the eastern variety, which is, believe it or not, Teliqua rugosa asper. They used to be called Trachydosaurus rugosa. Now, I think that's a pretty cool name. Almost sounds like Jurassic Park. Trachydosaurus rugosa. But no, they're Teliqua rugosa now. So these guys are the East Coast variety. They're chocolate. They can be black. They can be white speckles. They can have yellow speckles. They can be browns, beiges, and even slightly tan colors as well. They're absolutely drop-dead gorgeous creatures. I'm sure it's going to be very difficult for you guys not to fall in love with these absolutely gorgeous little creatures, the shingleback lizards. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. Make sure you hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget TikTok. Until next time, guys, make sure you get out and check out nature. Thanks for watching Critter Cam.